Welcome everybody to the Magic Beans podcast. We are back again for episode number 26. I am your host and my name is Shorty, and we have quite a few beans here tonight. On the line with me I have Chewy. How you going, Chew?
I'm well, how are you, mate?
I'm pretty good. We also have Cracker. How you going, Cracker?
I'm good, buddy. Very well.
That's good. And we have a blast from the past in Chris. How you going, Chris?
Hey, I'm doing well. Strangers.
Welcome back.
Welcome to the podcast.
Long time listener, first
magic.
time. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I hear you've been living the farming lifestyle, Chris, and you're taking a leaf out of my page and getting into raising chickens and things like that now in this isolation that we're in.
Yeah, just gone feral, grown a beard, got some chickens. It's all happening.
I'm picturing you with like a piece of straw hanging out of your mouth.
Yeah, I need to get the flannelette shirt and I'm there.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yep. I expect cowboy boots on Jenna next time I see you.
Ah, okay.
All right, well, this is not a farming podcast. This is a magic podcast, and as always... Sometimes, yes. As always, we have a ton of stuff to talk about. So the first thing we thought we'd get into, which was something that was sort of sprung on us unexpectedly after our last podcast we recorded a fortnight ago, and that was... out of nowhere, we have 8-man drafts, or 8-people drafts on Arena, which we've all been clamouring about for quite a while, along with everybody else who plays Magic. We'd had enough of the bot drafts and we wanted the real experience, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it got announced and got released with the Ikoria update. So I haven't had a chance to get into those drafts yet, but I know, Chewy, you've been doing a few. How are you finding doing real life drafts again?
Yeah, we have been waiting for a really long time for these drafts, and I'm pretty excited by them. And it's almost a brand new experience, because on Arena we're so used to bot drafting and the bot sort of metagame where bots would just let whole archetypes go and you could get some busted decks, and you know the Gates deck in the Ravnica set,
drafted a lot of that one.
Yeah, or the Mill deck in Eldraine, where it was a bit it detracted from the overall experience, I think.
It was exploitable.
Yeah, that's right. But what I'm discovering is with Arena comes a lot of inexperienced Magic players, like players that only play on Arena and haven't really drafted much. So,
yeah, sorry.
So are you saying you're farming people?
No, I'm not farming.
You're the one getting farmed.
Nice. No, I've got my limited. Like I think I've only not gotten to the 7 wins or the 5 wins, whatever it is, twice out of like 7 drafts or something.
Yeah,
but the actual drafting experience is really different, because you're like, why am I getting a 4th pick, whatever, like good removal spell or whatever, but because people are, excited about new mechanics and trying to force things. So I think it'll work out. I think by the time a couple of weeks have passed, the novelty would have worn off, and the price of entry will force a bunch of people out of that drafting, because it's twice as expensive to enter a real person draft than it is a bot draft. So it's back to my win rate. I think I've not gone 2-1 or 3-0 only a handful of times. So, but yeah, it's I've been doing bot drafts as well and doing well. I'm really enjoying drafting this set is the long and the short of it. It's really fun. I wasn't sure, as people who listened to the cast 2 weeks ago, I wasn't sold on this set. I didn't know how it was going to be. But yeah, it's actually pretty awesome. I've occasionally had an opponent trying to have a companion and those restrictions in draft, which has been really interesting. A bit of a buy at times, but there's, it's been really fun. The set's really good. The mana's interesting in the deck, in your deck, and there's a lot of deck building challenges and cracking the code on when to mutate something and when to just like play something as another body.
I think that's going to take a while for everyone to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I've enjoyed exploring, and there's so many different situations, and Magic's such an awesome game with so much depth and nuance that every time that situation comes up, it's different. And I've really enjoyed that because it seems to come up pretty regularly. So I really do enjoy it.
How have you found the actual process of drafting on Arena? Like you've done a lot of drafts on Magic Online, and obviously you've done a lot of in-person tabletop drafts. How does the Magic Arena version of that stack up to the others?
The interface is great. It makes perfect sense. For like all things in Arena, there are some sort of superfluous animations that, I've gone on record before saying that I just find them annoying. I don't love them. If my opponent plays a Thasser, I don't want to see the Thasser animation. Maybe the first time that Thasser's cast in a game, but not every time. It's annoying. And you get a little bit of that within the draft where there's some, some flashy bits that are just there for the sake of it. But, that's grumpy old man me just wanting to play Magic. So that obviously appeals to a lot of people. So I can get over it if it means that more people play the platform. So, yeah, I think it's great.
So Chew, what about the timing? Because the way that they've set this up is different, right? You actually get more time for pack one, pick one. You get 90 seconds. And then as you get further down the picks, then you have less clock to work with. Have you felt that at all? Does it feel different?
I felt it in the first couple of drafts. That's normal. Modo drafts are like that, and competitive
real
drafts.
Paper drafts are like that.
Yeah, paper drafts.
You get less time. You don't get the same amount of time per pick.
In a cold draft, at the last cold draft I did was with Shorty at Nats, or at GPs or that Pro Tour I went to. And I love that. I really enjoy the cold draft, and it's not the same as being in a room with a couple hundred other Magic players or 1,000 other Magic players with the cold draft. But yeah, it's something that I didn't even think about it, to be honest. It's just something that's always been on Magic Online, and by the time you get down to 6 cards in the pack, you shouldn't need the full minute and a half to go through them.
Yeah, I did picking pretty quickly by then.
Yeah, I did need it by with the first couple of drafts because I still didn't know all of the cards. But yeah, now that I've drafted a few times and kind of got familiar and tested out a few archetypes, which is something I also explored and had fun doing, where it was it's okay, there's a cycling thing, and this card does something when I cycle. Let's try to force that archetype, or it might seem open. And I don't know what the best archetype is yet. I haven't done enough drafts to figure that out. I've had sort of Teamer mutate, and I've had blue-white skies, and I've had blue-red spells, and I've had red-white cycling. So yeah, it seems pretty diverse. The gameplay is great, and I'm going to enjoy drafting this format. Has anybody else done much limited or even a pre-release event?
No, I don't think any of the rest of us have done it.
I got my code. I haven't used it yet, though.
Yeah, I haven't cashed mine in yet.
No, I'm planning on it in the next couple of weeks, but yeah, so I'm sort of doing fairly well on the standard ladder, so I wanted to keep playing standard at the moment, and I'll get into limited a bit later.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well,
but we might touch on that a bit more maybe in the next podcast, and we'll delve into once we've all had a chance to actually get right into it, we can maybe break down the limited format a little bit more.
Okay, well, what brand new busted archetype are you doing well on the ladder with then, Shorty?
We'll get into that soon. We just wanted to run through for everyone because they've changed with the update. They've changed the structure of the drafts, and the first couple of times, I went to go and do a draft, I was a bit confused as to which draft was which. So I thought it might serve our listeners well to have a bit of an understanding of what drafts they should be doing. So there's now 3 versions of drafts, which I think there was previously, but they've kept sort of similar names. So there's traditional drafts and premiere drafts, which are the 2 real in-person 8-person drafts. And then there is the quick draft, which is the existing bot draft. So, Chris, do you want to give us a rundown on the costings and the prize structure just quickly on the traditional and premiere drafts? And then we can have a quick chat about those.
Yeah, sure. So Traditional draft at the moment is 1,500 gems or 10,000 gold to jump in. I don't know if they're going to reduce the cost of that or whether that's going to stay like that.
I'm tipping it'll stay the same.
Yeah. Boo-hoo.
That's fine. Just win and you get your entry back. It's fine.
Oh, get good. So traditional draft is best of 3. The price structure starts basically at a pack for a win and goes up to 6 packs and 3,000 gems for the full stack. And I think it's... How many games is it for? Is it 7? 7 wins?
No, it's just 3 rounds for the traditional draft.
It's just like a draft if you were doing draft for F&M.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, best of 3 rounds, up to 6 packs, 3,000 gems for full wins. Premier draft, which is more like the existing draft structure where you go up to the 7 wins system, is 1,500 entry, 10k gold. So same entry cost, but you play up to 7 wins or 3 losses, and it's a best of 1 structure. And you've got a slightly flatter prize curve on that, similar to what was existing. And that starts with 100 gems in a pack and goes all the way up to 2,200 gems in 6 packs if you take down the 7 wins.
Yeah, so the traditional draft is the analog version of a real in-store draft. You draft with 8 people, you play 3 rounds, they're best of 3 rounds, and the prize structure is quite top-heavy. Whereas the Premier draft is a little bit more casual. You're playing best of 1, and you've got more losses to give. You can get up to those 7 wins, but you can also have up to 3 losses and still, have 2 losses and still continue playing. So for me, I'd be more likely inclined to play the Premier draft. I'm not super confident in my drafting capability, and I think the top-heavy structure of a traditional draft is probably not where I want to be at. Whereas someone like you, Chewy, I'm assuming you're doing a lot more of the traditional drafts where you're playing just the 3 rounds and best of 3?
A split between them. But, yeah, I've done probably 50-50. And this is actually really similar to the way that it's been on Magic Online for a really long time, where they had the 8-4, where if you made it to the finals of a draft, you got 8 booster packs and you got 4 for second and you got nothing. It was, single limb. Yeah. Or there was the 4-3-2-2. So if you at least won 1 round, you'd at least get 2 boosters. So it's similar. There's parallels there. And it's good practice. Like if you just want to play and collect the packs and have a good time, you've got the quick draft option. Then there's the sort of the Premier draft is your sort of intermediate, where it's decent value. You're going to get a slightly higher level of competition, and then you've got your really spiky in your traditional draft. So I guess Arena's catering for the full spectrum of Magic player and their limited experience, I suppose. So
for quite a few of our listeners, they are new to drafting and they've never done it before, and the bot drafts were quite good for them because they could really take their time doing it, and there wasn't that pressure that you get in the time draft. So those still exist, and they are now called quick drafts, and that's the same structure as it was before, but they have seemed to reduce the prize structure of that a little bit as well. So the cap out now on the gems is at 950 gems, whereas I think before you could get a bit more than that.
It was 1,100, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah,
like
something like that. Yeah. One thing I will say, and something that for anybody who has a decent limited aptitude, you can run really well in traditional draft where, I'm can't remember what my rating is. I'm in gold 1 or something, but I will play against people from like low diamond tiers or even like gold 4s, like the full spectrum, which tells me that there's a lot less people doing traditional drafts. But if you're up there in the sort of high platinums or diamonds or above, then there's a chance you're going to play people that are a lot lower ranked than yourself. So there is the opportunity to spike it there. But I don't know if many of our listeners are in that space, but if you are, then yeah, there might be an opportunity to spike a little bit there. I'm not at that point, but I think you see somebody with a diamond ranking, and you sort of you go, ugh, like here we go, and generally they're that higher quality player. But, that's how you get good, right? You play against people that are better than you. So
That's right.
yeah. So if you're not confident with that, or that's not something you want to do, then stick to the Premier or the quick drafts would be my advice.
Yeah, so you can still do fine out of the quick drafts if you're following our previous advice on sort of turning your gold into gems. You can still do that pretty successfully in your quick drafts. You're still getting good value, even if it's $5,000 entry still, even if you're getting 1 or 2 wins and then getting all your losses and being dropped out, you're still turning your gold into gems. So it's still worthwhile doing it that way if you're not a very confident drafter, but as you work your way up, you can get much better value by doing the Premier and then the traditional draft. So we may delve into actual drafting and the limited archetypes and things like that on another cast if we get a chance. So Chewy, you were wanting to push me into talking about standards, so
I thought I had a really good segue, but you just shut me down.
So I wasn't quite as savage as Cracker the last time we recorded.
Hey, now that was necessary.
I'm still putting ointment on that burn. Just saying.
I got one thing to say about this limited thing. So actually 2 things. One is if you do quick draft against bots, you will only play against people who have drafted against bots. So there's no mixing between them. So if you play traditional draft, you're only playing against people who've drafted in traditional draft. It doesn't mean it's the 8-person pod. It's a league. So you can take as long as you want to build your deck. And when you queue up, you can play a game and come back. So there's no pressure after you've done the draft part. But the bot drafters will always play against the bot drafters. And I wish that the Premier draft was only $5,000.
Yeah, same.
I appreciate them having the triple, the limited, best of 3 games, super high value, spiky, that's traditional drafts. Go for it. Make it $10,000 and, you spike it and you get 2 free drafts out of it, right? That's awesome. But this kind of mid-tier, it feels like you're being punished for nothing. I don't understand why they've done it.
Because Arena's been around a little while, it's been their premier platform, and everybody is invested now, and so now they can start driving up the prices. Classic.
Sure, but I will play 2 drafts for $5,000 each before I play 1 at 10. So the gold is just going to sit in my account, or I'll do bot drafts instead, right? Yep. And so they're actually getting less money from a lot of people, I think, because you hit $5,000 and you go, I'll do a draft, right? Why not? But 10 it feels like a big number for not a huge amount of payoff there. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I tended to wait until the drafts, when they were gems only, and then it would cut to gold once the set had been out for a few weeks or whatever, and they would always just be a $5,000 flat entry fee. And that's when I would jump in and draft a bit. But when they're a flat $10,000, it kind of changes the scope a bit. So, yeah, I don't know.
And I appreciate that they've got to make money. That's fine. I'm not trying to begrudge Wizards of that. It's just that, make the prize payouts flatter, make it 2,000 gems or something like that. I'm mostly interested in the experience rather than trying to, I'm not trying to go infinite, right? But at the same time, I'm not trying to get just robbed.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that. And I think that's a really valid point. And probably you've hit the sentiment of a lot of players on the head there. It's at the moment, I'm excited still that there are actual proper drafts, and we've seen the Magic Fests and stuff move online, and this opens the door to have the sort of traditional structure of player tours and Mythic Invitationals or whatever they might be called at the time, where you can have a mixed format. Like Worlds last year or whenever it was early this year had paper draft, and then they had to transcribe their decks into Arena, where now they could actually just do it all on Arena. So I'm still excited about that aspect of it, where the platform's evolving and, are going to allow that high level gameplay. So it's, when we watch those Premier events, it's always a lot better to watch them via Arena than it is via, a top-down camera. Watching people shuffle their decks as they, sideboard and such. So, I'm excited about that aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, it's a small gripe from me about costs, but
it's a valid one, really valid.
I'm legitimately pumped that we have player drafts on Arena before the end of the year. No one thought it was coming for another 6 months. So, well done for getting it out.
Yeah. Awesome. And I'm sure they'll look at their data over the first couple of months or whatever, and if they go, all right, well, traditional's pretty popular, the bot drafts are really popular, but the one in the middle, people just don't play, well, then they'll look at tweaking the numbers, whether it's on the prizes or the entry prices or whatever. That's something they can very easily do, and I'm sure they'll monitor that sort of stuff.
And then I can complain on Twitter that I've done X number of those ones and I should be refunded $5,000 for each one that I've done.
Sure. Speaking of complaining on Twitter, there you
There's
go, Chewy.
always complaint equity.
You got a segue there. One of the biggest complaints we've been seeing on Twitter in the last week or so since Ikoria, however we've decided we're going to say it's been released, is companions. So, Cracker, I think you're going to give us a bit of a rundown on how many companions we've been seeing lately.
A few, yeah. Not all of them are seeing a lot of play, but I mean, as I've mentioned before, I tend to consume quite a lot of Magic content as well. I really enjoy just, seeing people play the game and different approaches. So I've seen probably everyone try and play all or most of them, but some of them are certainly seeing more play than others. The couple that I've run into on the ladder have been Garuda, right? Because that one apparently just builds itself. It came out pretty quickly. And let me read Garuda for people, because why would you remember what that is? It's called Garuda Doom of Depths, and it's four generic and then 2 hybrid in Dimir, so black and blue. And it says it's a companion, so it starts in your sideboard and you can reveal it at the beginning of the game. And it says, when Garuda enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield under your control. And it's a 6/6. So the shell that people are putting this in is banned because, that's just what everyone puts everything in these days. So it's blue, green, and white, and they're basically just ramping it out. The constraint with Garuda is every spell in your deck has to have an even converted mana cost. So they're playing like Charming Prince and Paradise Druid and, Growth Spirals and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, Growth Spiral into, what's the explosive vegetation with cycling out of the new
Migration Path.
Migration Path, yeah. So you've got Growth Spiral and Paradise Druid into on turn 2, onto turn 3 Migration Path, onto turn 4 play your companion.
And so the trick with Garuda is you flip 4 cards from your both players' decks and you put a even converted mana cost creature into the battlefield. So they're playing Spark Double, and they are copying Garuda, and then they're getting another trigger, and then they'll get another one, or they'll get a Charming Prince to blink it, or they'll get a Thassa, or multiple. And so, I have played games against it where on turn 4 they've cast Garuda, and they've started the turn with no power in play and ended with 30. And you're just like, okay, well, there goes that idea. So that's one of the ones that I have come across.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that on ladder. It's pretty popular, and it's one of those decks that has those draws where it's just there's literally nothing my deck can do. I just die. So just well done, good game, and move on to the next one. But then they have that sort of turn where they might whiff once, or they miss that turn 2 accelerant, and they just turn into kind of a clunky value mid-range deck. But yeah, so sometimes they're this turn 4, turn 5 insane combo deck. Other times they're a bit mopey. But it's pretty draw dependent.
If you counter Garuda, they scoop sometimes. Just saying.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That requires you to play counter spells in your deck.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be playing counter spells in your deck?
I've seen a bunch of decks that it doesn't affect me too much with the deck that I've been playing, but with Hushbringer in the main deck. So, and I can't remember who mentioned it in our Discord. It may have been you, Shorty, where seeing people main decking Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah. So I played against a deck today. I'll sort of touch on a deck that I've been playing. I've sort of brewed up a mono black sacrifice deck. There's been quite a bit of, I've seen on the ladder quite a bit of either white black or black red
Rakdos.
sacrifice decks, and a lot of them using Lurus, the dog thing, whatever it is, hound, whatever.
Dream Den or whatever he's called.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, just to bring back things from their graveyard. And I sort of had a look at that deck and went, you know what? I'm not actually getting that much benefit out of Lurrus. I'm just going to try, and also I didn't have the wild cards for the white-black land, so I'm just going to try brewing up some mono black. So I've got a nice little brew that's working off of all the triggers for creatures dying, like the 3 mana enchantment for when your creatures die, you drain for 1. You're playing your good old Cauldron Familiar and your Witch's Oven package, so you can keep sacrificing them. So a good bit of fun, and I come across today a deck playing main deck Grafdigger's Cage and main deck Ashiok, and safe to say that my deck did not handle that very well. So
it's the most metagame deck ever.
I played against one yesterday that wouldn't let me cast spells not from my hand. It's a white creature, it's a 2/3. And right. I was playing mono red, and it meant that I couldn't cast my creatures from adventure, and I couldn't light up the stage.
Yep.
I couldn't kill it because it was a 2/3 and they wouldn't block.
Wow.
Nice. Yep. So I'll put my deck list from that deck in the show notes if anybody's interested in it. It's been going pretty well. I've been having a bit of fun with that. But I think, Chewy, you've been putting some companions into your decks as well.
I've played 2 different companions, and one of them I've cut. I tried it and I went, I think it'd be better if I didn't do it, but I'll talk about the other one first. I've been playing Lurrus a little bit. Reese from our Discord posted a black-white Knights deck with Lurrus as the companion, and he's had some good success with it. I've had sort of probably a 50-50 win rate with it if I checked my untapped profile, but quite a grindy aggressive deck. So an aggressive deck that's able to go long because Lurrus lets you rebuy spells, and there are things in the deck such as the Black Omen that let you rebuy Lurrus, which then lets you rebuy the next lot of spells, or rebuy the Omen because you can sack it again for a scry, and so you can kind of just keep looping your companion and getting value out of it. So it's pretty cool, but sometimes you get those decks that go bigger and you just kind of, wish you had better cards in your deck than
creatures that cost more than 2.
Yeah.
That's why I moved away from Lurrus. It was just annoying to not have access to 3 mana stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one I was playing was Karuga, which is the dinosaur hippo guy that only lets you play spells with CMC 3 or more in a Fires shell. And I've actually, he was fine. You can stay alive by playing Deafening Clarion and the adventure side of Bone Crusher Giant. So you're not, sitting there dying to mono red, not being able to cast any spells. And, doing sort of normal Fires things, but adding in green. And it was okay until I kind of got, I got to a point where I felt like he was a little bit win more at times, and I thought, do I actually need this guy? So when he comes into play, you get to draw cards with, draw cards equal to the number of other CMC 3 or more, 4 or more permanents that you have. So
you're usually drawing an extra 2 or 3 cards.
Yeah, but if I've got a Fires of Invention and a Cavalier and a Kenrith, I'm usually winning that game anyway. So drawing those couple of extra cards to get a 5/4, sometimes there's a nail in the coffin, sometimes you just don't need it. So I thought, well, what else could I do here to make it if I took him out, what do I get? So I removed that card and I took out a lot of the white. I'm only splashing white for Kenrith now, and I'm playing a full complement of Growth Spirals, and I'm having a lot more fun and a lot more success with the deck now with having Growth Spiral and Uro to, hit that 5th land with your Fires a lot faster. And it's kind of a deck I've been working on and tweaking with a little bit, and it's great. You've got Storm's Wrath to sweep the board where you would not used to have Deafening Clarion in Jeskai Fires. You can still cast it on turn 3. It hits those Planeswalkers. It's really quite good, and you have the Ultimatum
The draw 5 lands and put them into play.
Yeah, the Genesis Ultimatum, which I think I think I was like 3 out of the last 5 and 3 out of the last 7 now, where literally I'd flip 5 lands off the top and that was a bit of a beating, but the rest of the time the card just sort of wins the game. And I was sharing one of my games on Discord the other night. You were on, Joel, and it was just I think
hilarious
I had one of each.
Is what it was.
Yeah, massive variance. So sometimes it's just like, I'm gonna win the game now, and other times it's like, oh, that was embarrassing. I probably would have lost anyway if I drew 5 lands in a row. But yeah, it's a pretty swingy card. But I would say overall, it wins more games more often than it draws 5 lands, I guess. But
yeah, nice.
Yeah, but 4-color fires. It's awesome.
Well, give me the deck list for that, and I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yep. Okay.
I think some people will be interested in that one. And Chris, you've also been jamming a companion into a deck you've been running previously.
I've been playing around with, I think it's Yorion. That's how I'm pronouncing it.
You can say it however you want.
Awesome. So Yorion Sky Nomad. I'll read out what the card does. So it's a 5 mana card. It's got 2 hybrid Azurius, or white, blue, and 3 generic is the cost. Legendary creature, Bird Serpent. Its companion, deck restriction is your deck must contain at least 20 cards more than the minimum deck size. So you have to have a minimum 80 card starting deck to play this card. It's a 4/5 flyer, and when Yorion enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control and return those cards to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So I was already playing around with like an Azurius Blink deck, ones that were playing Thassa and Agent of Treachery and Charming Princes, that kind of thing. And so this is a bit of an extension of that deck, and I just get to play a heap more fun cards. So I was saying earlier, offcast, that I never had room to be able to fit Teferis and Elspeth Conquers Death and a whole bunch of other stuff in my original 60-card Blink deck. But now that I've got 80 cards to play with, I can play all the good cards. So it's a bit of a brew. It's a bit of fun. And I've seen guys like Mengucci, I think, has built an Esper version of this, which looks awesome as well. But one of the cool things with Yorion is that it will blink non-land permanents. So unlike Thassa, where it just blinks creatures, you actually get to bounce and return planeswalkers or enchantments, all that kind of stuff. So when you're playing the Omens,
Conquer's Death seems pretty good.
Yeah, that's it. Even just the Omens, like if you play like a Fibblethip and a Charming Prince and a couple of Omens in the early turns, and you drop this guy, then you end up drawing like 4 cards and gaining 3 life and blinking stuff. So there's a bunch of cool stuff you can do, and you've got all the sort of...
How many lands are you playing in it?
I think my last build had 32.
Oh, that seems low. I've seen lists with the full 40.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot
I think
of
most are running like 34, 35 lands.
Yeah, I think I had...
It's so hard to know.
Yeah, and my list is a complete brew, by the way, that I've been playing with. But I think I had 33, and my curve was reasonably low. I was playing a lot of 2-drops, and I was playing Fibblethip's and Charming Princes and Omen of the Seas, and
they'll let you hit your land drops, I guess.
Yeah,
so,
that's it. I can scry my way through things and draw a lot of cards early on, and they're fairly expendable, but they're also great if you drop a Yorion and you blink them all. You just get to see so much of your deck. So, it's been lots of fun. That's cool. There's all kinds of shenanigans you can get up to. Being able to play around sweepers by... playing a Charming Prince and blinking your Yorion, and it comes back during your end step, and then it blinks all of your permanents, so nothing gets swept, and then it'll come back at the end of your opponent's end step, and then you get them all back, and then you keep playing. So there's
it's like Teferi's protection all over again.
Yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of shenanigans you can get up to. So
hang on, is Yorion going to go in your
Planeswalker,
Traxxas Planeswalker commander deck then, Chris?
Look, it seems horrible, but sure. Any ETB stuff is awesome. I think Mengucci's list was playing like Oath of Kaya and all that kind of stuff. So you get
he's playing Doom Foretold and Dan to the Manse and stuff as well, I think.
Yes,
because why not?
Yeah, and I think you could go down the band route as well. Like, there's no reason. There's so many good ETB effects on green cards too, like green and blue cards between like Cavalier of Thorns or Uro or whatever. Like all of those. I mean, you'd be losing your Uro if you're blinking him, but
you still get your value.
You're getting a lot of value, yeah. So yeah, it's a cool card. I plan on playing and brewing with it a lot more. So
I take it you're playing all 4 Agent of Treacheries as well, Chris.
Oh yeah, and Thassa.
No, he said he had a low curve, so I'm tipping he's not playing 7 drops.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, I've got 80 cards to play with, so
There's another deck I've come across that's playing 4 Agent of Treacheries. Except it's Jeskai.
Yeah,
yes,
I've come across this deck a bunch of times.
Yeah. So this one isn't using a companion, but it is using the premier card for this deck is one of the Ikoria cards. It's called Winota, Joiner of, I hate this deck, Forces. Winota, Joiner of Forces is 2 red and a white. It is a legendary creature human warrior, and it says whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. So the first time I came across this deck, I was playing Is It Flash, right? Which I made some tweaks to and I was having some fun. And my opponent on the end of turn 3 went flash in, raise the alarm. So they made 2 1/1 white soldiers. And I was like, okay, you got it, buddy. You can have your 1/1s. And then they untapped, slammed Winota, attacked me, and then they put 2 Agent of Treacheries into play, which were indestructible and stole all my stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me.
That's so good.
How are the raise the alarm tokens not
human soldiers?
They're just soldiers.
Yeah. So
tell me about it. And I was just like, what the hell just happened to me? I had no idea what was going on.
So I lost to that deck last night when they put Agent of Treachery on top of their library before they attacked with Scheming Symmetry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went and got a Storm's Wrath and was able to clean things up, but it cost me a couple of lands, and they ended up still losing that game through their just huge value turn. But yeah, they're playing splashing black for. I saw something died to a Heartless Act. So yes, some removal and a tutor. So yeah, I was like, what is going on? And then I remembered your experience, Cracker, and I reckon I read from top to bottom every piece of text on Raise the Alarm, trying to find that somehow these are humans, because
right.
Yeah,
I've seen that deck a bunch, and yeah, they're using things like I've completely blanked on its name, the Goblin with Mentor that creates a 1/1. Yeah, Goblin Warboss. That's
Legion Warboss.
Legion Warboss.
Yep.
To create tokens and Raise the Alarms and other token generators, but then all the actual creatures
Chandra
in the deck.
Acolyte of Flame as well. So they're making hasty elementals.
Elementals.
So put my brewer's hat on for a second. Can I put Emrakul into play in Modern?
Yes.
Oh yeah, pretty cool.
You're putting a human into play.
Oh, it's a human into play.
Yeah, you put a human
non-human attacking. Yeah.
When a non-human attacks, you're putting a human into play.
Okay.
Yeah, I did that completely wrong yesterday. They've got the a couple of event decks up at the moment where you can play them for free. And one of them is a red-white cycling deck. And so I was like, oh, sweet, I've got Winota. I'll cycle the dude who makes 1/1s every time you cycle, and then I'll attack and get all these triggers, and they were all humans. And I was like, oh, what is this? This is just Nombo City, and my dudes all died, and I gave up.
So good advice, read the cards. Yes.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, I've just been mostly just sticking with mono red. I've been finding there's so many people trying to jam these crazy decks with companions and all sorts of stuff. And mono red, I basically have not changed my list at all. I don't think it picked up anything other than a couple of sideboard cards. And just still smashing it and got me up into platinum. So,
is that the first time you've hit platinum?
Nah, I've been in diamond before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but haven't been in platinum for ages. But if you're someone who's been jamming the mono red because that's all you can afford with your wild cards, then feel free to keep jamming it because it's still pretty solid, especially in best of one. It's get those games done quickly and make your way up the ladder. So we've definitely seen the companion mechanic take a hold, not just on standard, seems to have been taking a hold of or taking over some other formats as well. Cracker, I think you've got a tweet there from Brian from Arena Deck Lists that sort of lists out some event results from last weekend.
Yeah, so first and second in the Vintage Challenge. So companions in the sideboards of all these decks, right? So first and second in the Vintage Challenge, first through fourth in the Legacy Challenge, the entire top 8 of the Modern Challenge, first through fourth in the Pioneer Challenge, and then 6 of the 8 slots in the Standard Challenge. So these are all like MTGO events that run like weekly or bi-weekly. They're not messing around. These are like, serious grinders and serious players who are doing these things. Look, part of it will be a recency bias, right? You can see some pretty nutty things going on there. But also, it turns out that Lurrus and LED in Legacy is just like a turn 1 infinite mana combo. So there's some pretty nutty things going on there. I mean, look, the sky is falling because it's Magic and just Twitter or Reddit or wherever you consume your Magic content from, but they're certainly very strong and making a big impact all across the board. So who knows how this will play out? I'm not going to make any predictions because I'll be wrong. But
no, come on, Cracker, you got to make a bold prediction.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, hot take. Okay, they will not ban them for ages.
Yeah,
I think, and then eventually people will tilt off so hard that Wizards will be like, oh, okay, sorry, it was a mistake. And then here's my hot prediction, right? You ready for this one? This one's just off the top of my head. Haven't seen it anywhere. We're going to have Teferi companions in Core 2021. Planeswalker companions.
And I'm quitting
Magic.
Magic
Here first.
We're going to look back at Elks with fondness.
Yeah, right. And it's going to have a static ability that says it's Aura of Silence, so you can only cast 1 spell per turn, and they don't even have to cast it. There you go.
And we're moving on.
Any excuse for Joel to bash Teferi, I tell you what.
Card tilts me so hard.
Yep. So yeah, we are seeing a lot of the companions, but like you said, Cracker, I think a lot of that might be it's the new mechanic in set, so let's just throw it in wherever we can. And I think a lot of people have probably just gone, well, this companion, its restriction fits in with this deck that I've already got. I might as well just put it in my sideboard and just have access to an extra card, whether it's a deck that's specifically built around that companion or not. So I'm tipping over the next month or so that it will start to average out and we won't see them quite as much. And then, people will stop complaining that the sky's falling. But yeah, I don't know either. I'm not going to make a firm prediction on what's going to happen, but we'll see. Either way, they've been a bit of fun so far, so we'll keep playing them.
Yeah, it's an interesting mechanic, and there's a subset of the Magic community that likes to grumble about things, and they've got things to grumble about at the moment. So there's a lot of that going on, but Wizards don't design things in the new sets with Vintage and Legacy in mind.
No.
So they'll just ban them if they feel the need to. So I'm comfortable with that. I think it's a good strategy.
The one thing that is interesting, though, in Vintage with Lurrus, Vintage doesn't have a ban list. The only cards that are banned in Vintage are for specific reasons, like dexterity cards and things like that. Everything else gets put on the restriction list, so you can only play one copy of that card. But when you're talking about a companion, you're only playing 1 copy of that card anyway. So that might be an interesting thing. Not that it makes any difference for any sort of competitive play, but how do they handle if they were going to go, okay, we're going to ban one of these companions in Vintage? It would be the first time that they're actually banning something for power level in Vintage. So that could be interesting. But like I said, it makes no difference to us.
Given the power of cards in Vintage, I would be really, really surprised if a 3 mana 3/2 with lifelink.
It's the fact you get Lotus every turn.
Yeah, I know that, but Lotus is already restricted. So to ban Lurrus but not ban Lotus just seems absolutely ludicrous. If you're banning something on power level, right? So the most powerful Magic card ever printed versus a 3 mana 3/2 with lifelink. It just that would be I'm not saying it won't happen, but I'm saying it'll be an insane situation for that to happen.
Yep.
They'll ban it on gameplay interactions rather than power level if they were to do anything. But anyway.
Anyway, we're not a vintage podcast, so...
We are not.
and none of us, I don't think any of us have even played a game of vintage, so let's move
I've
on
played
from
many games of vintage.
Yeah, you have, Chewy.
It's it's a little while ago.
Yeah.
We're a vintage podcast in the sense that we are all old.
Yes. All right, so we thought, seeing as we finally got Chris back on the podcast, we'd have a bit of a chat about how things are going in the finance world for Magic. We've mentioned it a few times on this cast already that we're starting to see changes with no actual paper tournaments going on. So, Chris, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown on what you've been seeing in terms of pricing and a bit of advice for people on what they should be doing?
Sure. So, I haven't been paying a huge amount of attention to this personally, just as a disclaimer right off the bat. But
Chris, you're not meant to say that. You're our expert.
Come on. No. The biggest trend I'm seeing at the moment is people who are actually finance focused aren't focusing on paper stuff and they're focusing on Moto. And I'm talking about specifically the finance people. But if we're talking about paper cards specifically, the general trend is there hasn't actually been like this massive tank in the market. There was all this speculation, people getting really concerned that, my paper cards are just going to lose all their value. I haven't actually seen a huge drop off. There's been some moderate declines, but if you look at just the general pricing of cards and standard legal sets and that kind of thing, pricing's remained pretty standard, actually. It's been quite okay. And in fact, there's still been a lot of movement and a lot of spiking cards, primarily driven at the moment by EDH, like Commander. So there seems to be what we've seen is a bit of a trend with people in isolation who are electing to just start getting together and playing Commander or building Commander decks in lieu of being able to hit up competitive Magic events, or maybe for people who aren't already invested in Moto. So we're actually seeing a huge amount of Commander cards spiking has been the biggest trend, I suppose, in general.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, Commander has always, or the last few years, Commander's played quite a big impact on pricing of cards.
Oh, definitely. Like you look back at cards like Smothering Tithe and it's a later set standard rare that doesn't see playing standard, but is one of the most expensive cards in the set.
Yeah, right.
It's only Commander. So there's been tons of trends like that. And you see that with, even more recent sets, some of the most expensive cards like Nyx Bloom Ancient and Shadow Spear, like that's really just Commander demand, and that's where the expense is at. And you can see similar trends with Ikoria as well.
Yeah, with the Tri-Lands in Ikoria, I'm sure the Commander players will be all over those.
Yeah.
So do you think if the situation that the world is in, in particular the US, kind of continues, and the way that the virus is trending in the US, where it's still trending up quite steeply, do you think the price hold and the increases that we're seeing will continue, or do you think there will come a point, where there hasn't been a paper Magic tournament for 6 months or whatever the threshold is, where you'll start to see a drop and it'd be a great time to swoop in and buy some Scalding Tarns or some Noble Hierarchs?
That would be nice.
Look, save some for the rest of us, Chris. That's all I'm going to say.
To be honest, I think for the paper market, I think prices, and this is just my feel, I think paper prices will probably remain pretty stagnant. I don't think we're going to see major price spikes outside of stuff like Commander cards. I think paper prices will be fairly flat, if not have a bit of a decline, if we're not seeing a return to normality, where we can all get back and start playing paper Magic. Yeah, the interesting thing at the moment is the prices haven't tanked, but it just depends on how things pan out over the next few months. Magic is like a luxury item, I suppose you could call it that. Like it's not a required expense for people. It's
whoa! Magic is an essential service, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
What do I mean? I'm on a Magic podcast.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Chris, on the delay in Ikoria coming out? And we've seen in Japan and a couple other places where the paper set has been released, the Tri-Lands and some other chase cards are quite expensive. Is that's just a supply and demand thing, or do you think people will be reluctant to, flock to their local game stores for paper pre-releases in, fear of, getting crook? That means sick for our non-Australian business. Do you think there'll be less of Ikoria in paper sold and therefore those prices will be high, or do you think people will just be, it's a cool set and people will just buy it and it won't really be affected?
Yeah, it's probably a bit from column A and a bit from column B, I think. But certainly, if you look at the dynamics at the moment with Ikoria, because it's only been released in paper in Asia, people who just really want the cards are going to be paying a premium for them at the moment. So if we're talking about good times to buy Ikoria, it's definitely not now. It's just that the dynamics are way out. There's just not enough supply in the market, and people who want cards will have to pay a huge premium for them. Usually, as a general principle, the best time to jump in and start looking at cards for a set is when there's peak supply, and that's usually within the first anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 weeks after the set has been released, when tons of product is being open, it's being drafted heaps. That's usually when you see pretty good prices.
Actually, that's an interesting point there. Like, this set probably won't get drafted very often. Like, it's highly likely that there won't be
at all, man.
Yeah, it's highly likely there won't be a physical draft of this set before the next set comes out. So that's got to have a drastic effect on how many cards are actually out there.
Yeah. You're not going to have that sort of F&M influx of people coming into stores, drafting, selling cards back to the store, stores being able to, resell cards to people who need them. Product's just not going to get opened as much. So yeah, it'll be an interesting dynamic. I think the people who are really keen to collect and just get the cards will get them anyway, and they'll buy them. I.e. me. But yeah, outside of that, I think we're entering into a pretty uncertain economic time, and I think people, rightly so, are going to be either putting some money aside and or, being a little bit more conservative with their spending for non-essentials like Magic. So, potentially on Ikoria.
For me personally, like I've mentioned before, that every set that comes out, I normally buy a booster box and a bundle. That's just the standard thing that I do, and I usually source that from Chris, who sources it from someone who knows where they come from, but they just turn up in his boot and I go and pick one up.
Make him sound dodgy, man. They fell off the back of a truck.
I don't know where his sources are, but they're just there somehow. But
he knows a guy.
Yeah,
it's funny how the 6'4", 100-kilo dude managed to get good prices on things. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah.
Firstly, I wish I was 100 kilos, but
the short, dodgy-looking guy buys things out of the back of someone's boot. Yeah.
Come see my contraband.
I picture Shorty opening up his jacket and there'd be boosters lined in instead of Rolexes. Yeah.
But I'm a bit unsure, and I still haven't decided if I'll even buy a box for this set, because I don't know when I'm going to get to play Paper Magic again, and it's kind of like, do I really want to put this money that I may need in a couple of months' time into cards that I may never use? So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of people in a similar boat to that.
Yeah, definitely.
I will buy, unless my financial position changes. So I'm one of the lucky ones whose employment has not been affected by the situation. My job is still ongoing, and I'm actually spending less money because I can't, go out for dinner and stuff. So I will 100% buy, whether it's this product or the next set that comes out, from my local game store, because, they are hurting at the moment. So PSA, still support your local game store where you can. And if that means buying product, and I think Shorty mentioned on a previous cast, maybe give them a call and purchase some store credit now, and then, cash that in on some Ikoria boosters or a box, so those game stores can actually survive. So that's my little community announcement. So please, support your local game store in any way you can.
Yeah, yep. For sure.
Cool. All right. So we thought we'd give a quick update on where we're at with our league. So we're most of the way through this league, the April league that we've been running, and as we've mentioned previously, I've been smashing everybody, and I've locked myself into the finals with a solid 5-1 record, so I'm sitting pretty on the top of Group A. But we also have Child Rebel Walker, who made it into the finals in our previous league, on the top of Group B with a 4-1 record, so they've only got one match left to play. But there's still a few matches left to play. I know you guys are planning on getting some done over the next few days. I think you've still got a few left to go. And Cracker, you're still in a good position to make it into the top 2 of our bracket. You can come and join me.
3-1 at the minute.
Yeah. But quick shout out to Daniel. We've got someone from Indianapolis over in the States who just sort of recently gotten into Arena. We've had a few chats with Daniel. He's a top bloke from over in the States. And managed to lock up the wooden spoon already with a 0-6 record. But we'll definitely be having something for him to console him for his quality effort in this first league that he's participated in. So this league will wrap up around the end of April or the start of May, and then we're planning on streaming the actual finals. So we're not going to lock in any details just yet, but we will be streaming the finals. Most likely it'll be either that weekend, so the first weekend of May, or the weekend after. We'll stream all the matches, and some of us will commentate over it. Not me, because I'll be playing in the finals, so maybe Chewy.
After you lose in top 4, you can stream the final. LSV style, right?
LSV style, yeah. So I'm just the same as LSV. Yeah, that's what I took out of that.
Yeah, definitely. Look, own it, man. Own it. Look, your record speaks for itself. I'm drawing so many parallels between your career and LSV's.
All right, so keep an eye out for that. There will be another cast before the league ends, so we can announce when that's going to happen. But as always, we will be running more of these leagues, so definitely come and join us in our Discord to get in on those. And while you're on the cast, Chris, let's just give you a bit of a rev up to get on there and get your matches done as well, because I think you've still got a few to play.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I'll jump on.
Public shaming, that's how we go on this podcast.
Peer pressure and public shaming, it's what keeps the world turning.
All right, so the last thing we wanted to announce, if you've listened to it already, we had an episode that came out last week. So we've currently had 3 episodes in a row, 1 per week, and we'll be announcing that we will be going to a weekly format. So
this is massive.
This is, it's pretty big. So we sort of mentioned, for those who've listened to this cast since the start, we've spent a lot of time talking about how time poor we are with our families and busy lives and things like that. And despite the isolation and all that sort of stuff that's going on at the moment, we're all still quite busy. So we still can't really do weekly episodes. It's not really feasible that we can actually commit to that. But we had a bit of a brainstorming session, and one of the things we came up with was pre-recording episodes. We've talked about it plenty of times that we have a huge list of topics that we want to get through to help educate you guys. And when we first started this cast, that was our goal. It was to have a topic per week that we could talk about and hopefully put out a bit of knowledge out there for people to hopefully improve their games. So we've managed to boil down our list and have a whole bunch of stuff that we've realised is not actually time sensitive in that it doesn't have to be released and recorded specifically that week. They're more evergreen topics, which is a term that's definitely used in Magic. And we thought, well, what we can do is we can pre-record these episodes and then we can release them on a alternative fortnightly basis to our regular podcast. So we've got a few already recorded and edited and ready to go. So as of next week, we'll be releasing our first one, and then we'll be alternating our weeks between doing this podcast that we're doing like we're doing right now, and then the opposite week will be a pre-recorded episode. So they may not always be as long as this one, and this episode has gone quite long already, so we're going to wrap it up pretty soon. But it'll be something for you, so you're getting a little bit of content from us each and every week. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think you guys are too.
Yeah, it's been fun to do.
Yep. Yeah, I've enjoyed it, and I think we've got some good content, some good advice, and
a lot of nonsense.
Well, there's always. Have you seen that meme where like God's creating someone? Nonsense it's like the cap came off.
So, Shorty, what was that about wrapping up the show?
Yes, all right. So we will do the wrap up now. So yeah, as always, we want to remind you to come and jump in our Discord. It is the place where we communicate the most with all the listeners out there. We really enjoy it. We're all on there every day, and it is really good to get to know a whole bunch of you. And yeah, like we've done in the past, we've streamed our games into Discord and people jump on and have a chat. So it's always great fun. So definitely come and join us. The link for that is always in our show notes, or you can find it on our Twitter and those sorts of things. And that's how you get access to join in for our leagues that we're running as well. So come and join us in there. If you do need to purchase some paper cards, go and check out mtgcardsales.com.au and use the code BEANS15 to get a 15% discount, and so that they know that you're a listener of us. That'll definitely help us out. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook and also Twitch. You just look up Magic Beans Cast or Magic Beans Podcast. You'll find us on there. And find us on Twitter at Magic Beans Cast. So if you want to get a hold of me, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Peace Inc. Chewy, you are?
At Joel is a jerk. I'm at Chewy MTG.
At Joel Cracker, you are?
At Joel Hill _.
And Chris, do you remember what yours is?
Yeah, I am at Polywaffle MTG.
Very good. All right, so that's going to wrap us up this week. Thank you, as always, for listening. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time.